Hello, Kim. This is your official welcome to the interview for Rebuilding Me 101, our Facebook group, and also a YouTube channel with the same name. As you know, we occasionally interview some of our members so that people can get to know you better and also find some of the struggles and some of the approaches that you've taken in your journey to health. And so let's get right into it. Maybe you could share with us, going back when you were a girl and looking back on your history, were you always healthy? Were you an athlete, or did you have some challenges? Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I grew up in a really poor family. I was an orphan. I was orphaned at 5 years old. And unfortunately, before that, I had seen my mother go through a lot of mental health issues and attempted
Oh,
suicides and that. Uh, so I was raised by my grandmother and my dad. I never met my dad. So she was my
wow.
guardian, and I was raised with my baby sister and my uncle Raymond, who never married, so he helped raise me. And we were very, very poor. So sometimes all we'd have to have was like a surplus food or a bag of potatoes, and my grandmother just fried them all up. And so we weren't health conscious at all, and it was just whatever you had to eat, you had to eat.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of the things that I had experienced as a small child, seeing my mom do, um, led me to find comfort in food. And so that's what we did. We ate, and it's just
I,
whatever was there that you ate. So I was a chubby kid. I was a chubby kid, made fun of a lot. Didn't have a loud voice. I still don't have a loud voice, but I write loud. So, but so a lot of jesting, a lot of that. So I wasn't a healthy person, but I was always walking, always biking, always climbing. Back then, kids actually went out
yeah.
and did. So, I mean, you had to get me to come in was like trying to get a dog to come in because I just wanted to be outside constantly, no matter what. So that's basically how I
Wow.
started off as a kid.
Wow, that's something. Thanks for sharing. That's pretty deep stuff. That's a challenging start. Let me ask you, it just stimulated a question, if you don't mind. Um, that had to impact your self-worth or your feeling about your own value at some point when you're younger, did it? Or were
Oh,
you?
absolutely. Absolutely. You're growing up chubby and you're poor. Of course, I didn't really know I was poor
Yeah.
because I was happy just being outside. But yeah, the jesting, even and I was also, I'm Hispanic. And my grandmother's a white English woman, which is wonderful, but she didn't think if you were, she happened to think that if you were not a white English woman, then you were black and that was bad. And that was growing up in the 60s. So you were either black or white. So
Oh,
since I'm mixed, it was like you're not white enough and you're not Hispanic enough.
yeah.
And it was that struggle there. So yeah, that feeling that you're not quite good enough at any time, besides
Wow.
your physical appearance, and
So that leads to an obvious question then, because that's such a challenge. And I mean, you're getting it mentally, emotionally, you're getting it even impacting your family circle and their view of you, or your perceived view. When, I mean, right now you have a voice. You actually are, if I may say, share with everybody, you're a lawyer. You actually fight for
Mhm,
people and
mhm.
their rights and helping them. So obviously that is a an area where there's always struggle and you have to be strong even in your job. So from there to here, when did you get your voice, or when did you get feeling better? What was the mechanism that helped you do that and accomplish that? And how does it relate to your mental and physical health?
Well, I always wanted to stick up for people. I always had that tendency since I was little. I would get on a chair in the mirror and argue and that. So that was something that's ingrained, I guess, wanting what's just and what's
Uh,
fair. But later on in life, when I was 17, I was not married, but I became pregnant. And back then, I was raised by my grandmother. Back then, it was bad if you were pregnant and not married.
yep, I remember.
So I was kicked out of the house and I became homeless and pregnant at 17.
Oh man, Kim.
And my son's father, unfortunately, was extremely abusive. So I had to get out of that relationship.
Yeah.
After 6 years, finally, I was able to get out of that. So then I went to school, and because I never believed, I wasn't raised to be on welfare or anything like that. So I
Yeah.
worked 3 and 4 jobs and went to school, and I believed that welfare and that was for people who really needed it. And
You didn't think you needed it. You weren't going to need it. You
no,
were
no,
determined.
and I was able-bodied, healthy person.
Yep. Yep.
And then I started exercising and becoming educated on nutrition. And like I said, I would work 3 and 4 different part-time jobs and go to school.
Mm.
I got my bachelor's degree, and it was just, if you wanted to make a man's money, you had to have a man's job.
Mm.
And back then, women's working and waitressing and that wasn't making a lot. And I had to raise my son by myself
Yeah.
because I didn't get anything from his dad, not even a loaf of bread. So I wanted to make sure that my son was provided for. And I thought it was very important for him to have an educated mother.
Yeah, I love it. So you
So
took
I
the
just,
charge. You became like your own champion, your own advocate, and self-determining your life and your son's. Wow, that takes a lot of power, doesn't it? I mean, some mental
yeah,
strength and discipline.
a lot of prayer.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
bet.
but yeah, it's just not having it in you to know how to quit. I think that is something that's really ingrained with me,
Yeah.
that even if you want to, you just don't know how to.
Let me
So
pause you there because that is such a powerful point that you're making. And I know this wasn't a scripted interview, so we're just kind of spontaneous, but you're firing up my brain as I'm listening to some of the cool stuff you're sharing. What looking back on how you were able to do that, if you were to be a coach or a mentor for someone, even just with health challenges or feeling like they don't have the worth or they're not worth all the effort, or I'm never going to get healthy, or how could I follow a good diet? What would you tell them they need to start with their mindset and maybe their emotion? Where would you tell them to start?
I would say to get the possibility of not doing something out of your mind, just as that's not in existence. It's like if you were married to someone and there was that was it. There's no possibility of getting divorced. You would just know that you would just work on this. So the possibility of failure, you're not going to do it. You just get that out of your mind. And granted, you might fail here and there, but when you keep going, that means you have so far in your life, you have been successful in getting up every single time. You're a success. You haven't failed.
Wow, I love that. So it's almost as if a big part of the definition of success is just never quitting, never giving up, always moving forward.
Absolutely.
And would you say in that journey that, and I know the answer, but I just want to hear you say it and share it with everyone, is it like one big leap, or is it like lots of little chipping away, get up again? And that's what I'm getting from what you were saying. It's the daily
Lots of chipping away.
even when you fall back a step, you go back forward
You
too.
keep going.
Yeah.
And then after a while on your journey, say even a year, you can do a self-examination of how am I now? Where was I there?
Right.
I say it's like when I would take the kids to an amusement park, say Six Flags, and there's a huge line. It's like, oh, it's hot, it's terrible, But then as you're moving along, you look back and you say, we used to be there, but now we're here. So that's something I would always help. That would always help the kids to not feel like it's such a long way that you still got to go. I'm like, look where all those people are back there. We used to be there, but now we're over here. And then finally you are where you want to be.
I love
and
that.
It's great.
That's beautiful. You expressed that so well. In fact, oh yeah, I'm listening to you and it reminds me of our last week's discussion with everybody. Judy McSword in our group, as you know, also some of the similar challenges that you've had in raising kids. She made the similar statement. She said, that was then, this is now. And you're saying, look back to where you were, and here's where you are now. So you've got to have like benchmarks, don't you, to see you're making progress. So how did you track? Did you have a tracking system, or was it, I think you said you just kind of did like a check-in with yourself?
It's a mental thing.
Like write the stuff down? Did you have like a scrapbook with photographs or with your achievements to measure yourself? How did you do it?
Well, the only things really in writing, I did keep a diary for a long time. but I didn't write down achievements. I think the achievements I have a bunch of stuff all over my wall
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the different
Certificates.
degrees or the different licenses. And
Nice.
a nice one I like is the Supreme Court of the United States of America.
Yeah, that's an
Member,
accomplishment.
all kinds of different courts and stuff. So those things are up there. But as far as health wise goes, I do keep that in my mind, the healthy things I practice, or, I say, well, okay, where was I before?
Yeah.
To try to encourage myself and not to be so hard on myself and say, you know what, I have made, really big improvements.
Mhm.
I'm never going to be, not right now, but I hope to someday be perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go back to being in my 20s, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I do look at some of the people in their 20s and 30s, and they're not doing as well,
No. Yeah.
So I'm
Mindset.
very grateful.
Yeah. So now you're part of our group. You've been with us now for at least what, 4, 5, 6 months, maybe, or
Yeah, maybe about 5 months.
5 months, I think. Yeah. And how do you find being with the group as far as giving support or being an encouragement? Is that something you would recommend?
Certainly, it does give a lot of good, healthy recipes. Also, some on the meetings on Mondays, different ways to to go about a healthy lifestyle,
Yeah.
different approaches. One thing I found really helpful was a talk that you had given about meditation and changing the person you are.
Mm.
And I've been doing that in the morning because I used to do, actually, the way you explained it was like, it's almost like you're not a trance, it's not spiritism or anything like that. It's just like almost like you're in almost a half sleep wake mode.
Yeah.
And you're just visualizing, the you, the new you. And so I've actually done that in the past with like extremely difficult cases that I've had. Say I
Mm.
can't resolve this matter, or it's a really hard legal issue. And actually in the morning, that's the best time for me to do that. So
Yeah.
that talk really took me there. So when I'm in a half sleep mode, half awake mode, all of a sudden I'll be thinking about this case and I got it.
Yeah, that's
I got
exactly
it.
it. Yeah.
And
That's
so
so-
now I've been doing that with your suggestion, as adding the visualization where you can't have the words, that part of your brain that doesn't have the words, the language,
right. The limbic
and
brain.
doing the visualization in a half wake and a half sleep mode.
I love.
And that you automatically feel better. And I
Yeah.
think that's would be helpful.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. That actually, from a personal point of view, makes me feel good because I was fascinated with that because it's the same mechanism in our brain. Like we go to sleep with a problem and we're in the shower or something and we're humming, and all of a sudden it's like a light goes off and we get it because the subconscious, when you're in that theta sleep, you sent the message to look for it, and it's as if there's a little man in your brain going through all the files.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
fascinated. I'm so
exactly.
happy.
It's
I love
amazing.
that you found that too. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so what would you say to people that are kind of like watching, we have like 60 plus members. Not everybody comes on the Monday groups or maybe listens to some of the lectures and the excellent thoughts, because we have some like resident experts now that have really taught themselves. So there's a plethora of knowledge, there's a synergy from all of the people and their comments. There is value there, right? It's not just a prejudice from what I'm seeing, because I love the group, but you see it, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I
I
mean,
would
look at the stuff you just shared right now. How powerful would that be for any woman or man? It doesn't matter what sex they are, but there's powerful lessons in what your life took you from being impoverished, without the validation from even loving family members, not even having the natural. You said you never even knew your father, right? Never met
No.
him, never knew him, and you were raised by removed family members. So good for you, Kim, for what you've done. And I know it hasn't been easy. You've had many losses, right, along the
Mhm.
way here too, of
Yeah,
people you love and
yeah, my sister
separation.
recently passed. My baby sister recently passed,
Yeah,
and it was really difficult. But you
yeah.
never think you're going to be without your siblings.
No, I can't imagine. I only have one. I would hate to lose her. I can't imagine you and a few others, even in our group, losing close friends. So, of course, we like, from our spiritual point of view, we like to think that that's, as we believe in God's hands and a better day is coming. But in the meantime,
Absolutely.
it's so important that we not quit. I think that's a big
That's right.
takeaway of what you said. And I think your life is a model for that, because it hasn't been easy from the very start, but you never quit. And you found that where you are is not where you used to be. And so I
That's
just
it.
like to commend you for that, and thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that with everybody. And I think this interview is, I don't know how many minutes, what have we got, 10, 12 minutes we've done? I think it's going to be powerful though for everybody that hears it. So thank you, and man,
Welcome.
please stay with
Okay.
us and be an encouragement. Just your presence lights a fire in all of us, and especially now, I think as people hear more of what you have to go through,